Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I hope this finds you well. It's a nice. I better not overcook it. It's a nice day here in Auckland. So greetings to you and welcome to Solid Ground, wherever across New Zealand this finds you. If you are a regular, you know to jump onto the Family First Facebook page because there you can put in comments which come directly to me here in the studio. Let me know where you are in the country or around the world. And if you're new, well, do the same. Go to the Family First Facebook page because Solid Ground, like all Family First productions, goes across a whole range of social media. Facebook, obviously on my Facebook page, the Family First Facebook page, Bob McCoskey's. He's actually got a new Facebook page or a renamed one called Bob McCoskey McBlog. You can also see us on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, X, look, we're across pretty much most, if not all the platforms, well, not quite all, but most. So find us there and let us know what you think. As you say, if you want to be heard or seen live, put your comments in the Facebook page for Family First. So look, great to have you join me this morning. There's so much to discuss. There are sort of three major topics certainly on my mind and a few others, and we'll see about the others depending on time. But we obviously have had issues around, the church, supposed church leaders. Well, even that's not quite right. Some church individuals wrote a letter yesterday around the Treaty Principles Bill, which has stirred up a hornet's nest. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll definitely be talking about AUT's university and the way it's treating free speech. They're gaslighting people who are being bullied. Or put it really, really simply, AUT as a university has been accused of bullying its staff, and when the staff have said this is not acceptable, the university or some within it are bullying them further. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. And the other thing we'll look at, sort of keeping on a university theme, is that the basically despicable, disturbing, demeaning research which the university is undertaking at the moment around, get this, paedophilia. You probably weren't expecting to have the P word at this time on a Tuesday morning, but no word of a lie. There is research being undertaken at Victoria University at the moment, basically trying to, normalise paedophilia. It's just beyond sickening. So we'll talk about that because, some of you might be going, well, where's academic freedom? Well, here's the long and the short of it. Academics should have the freedom actually to look into all things. But when it is basically ideologically driven propaganda, which this is, because kudos to my colleague Bob McCoskey, he's been actually doing the hard yards for the rest of us. He's been going through the rather sick series of questions which they are researching. And they're very, very disturbing. In fact, if you want to jump onto his Facebook page, his LinkedIn, or as I say, the Family First Facebook page, you'll see the whole, everything that they're asking, and you don't have to take my or his word for it. It's pretty disturbing. But look, a couple of, I think, nice things to start with, believe it or not, as I saw this the other day. I just thought this was a nice story. So this is, I don't know Deborah, Dr. Lambie, but I just thought it was a small but lovely element. She's a Miss Universe contestant for New Zealand and pregnant, and I just thought it was lovely in and of itself. Partly, of course, in this case, pregnancies to be celebrated. I mean, you hear me, particularly in the life space, talk frequently about this, that life is not dependent on whether someone else wants you or not. And it's the same with unborn children. They have value regardless. Whether they're wanted or not doesn't change their value. So again, it's a small thing, but I just thought that was lovely. And so wishing Deborah well. And then just for, controversy before we get into free speech, the problems with paedophilia and church leaders who have gone off the reservation. I saw this. I mean, outrageous, is it not? So New Zealand, some New Zealand experts have done research. Basically, long and short, they say the likes of kiwi, the moa, and other what we deem as native birds actually originally came from Australia. You can look up this further on the Radio New Zealand. It's not actually meant to be controversial. I'm putting this up here as a bit of light, well, not so much humour, but I came across it and thought, actually, at some levels, it makes sense. when all the continents are relatively connected. I think they called it Gondwana land. I think initially it was called Pangaea, now it's Gondwana land. Long and short, they're saying that actually a lot of these species migrated from the Australasian continent to New Zealand. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. A little bit of morning controversy between our two countries. Thank you to everyone firing a hello. Michael, lovely to have you on board as, I think I've had you on before, so welcome. Good to have you here. And Donna, lovely to have you here too. Thank you very much. I won't be able to go through all and everybody's. I'll be here all morning saying hello. So look, a few topics to delve into, but very, very quickly. Thank you to everyone who submitted on this. This was last week. Submissions had to be in on this whole question of whether there should be particular and special rights and human rights legislation to protect transgender and non-binary. So thank you to everyone who submitted. As I've said many times before, we don't like discrimination, but if this goes forward in the way that some want it to, then, if you will, sex characteristics are going flying out the window. In other words, you can't have single spaces for women in particular, and at the same time say you can't discriminate against gender identity. In other words, men who think they're women, that the two are incompatible. So thank you to everyone who submitted on that. Now, one of the big things being discussed at the moment, I know this is very small font, but this is an open letter. This is an open letter which was put out by 400, they say church leaders. Some are, I've looked at the names, some are not. It's sort of actually a letter full of mischief, to be honest with you. And what the church leaders are saying is that they've got a real problem with something called the Treaty Principles Bill. It's an ACT Party idea that wants to codify in legislation what the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi are. And these 400 church individuals disagree with that. And which, by the way, they're welcome to. I just note to this, I actually looked up Common Grace. It's an umbrella group of pretty much woke Christianity. There's nothing on their webpage about the unborn, about euthanasia, about Christ being the Saviour, about redemption through the Gospels and through Christ. It's all about climate justice, treaty justice, economic justice. So it's all the usual left-wing, wet, liberal stuff that you're used to. And it's disappointing to see actually a number of church leaders signing up under that. By the way, I'm all for free speech. They're welcome to write these letters. They're welcome to sign up to these basically Marxist-inspired ideas. I'd love it if a lot of these church leaders would actually add their voice in public on topics that really matter to, if you will, the redemption of one's souls. Because let's be really clear, discussions like the treaty, the nature of our electoral systems, whether we should pay taxes more or less, these are all very interesting questions. Christians, as well as Muslims, Buddhists, atheists are all allowed to have an opinion. But actually, when it comes to what Christian leaders are meant to talk about, it is, to put not too fine a point on it, the salvation of one's souls. And the Treaty of Waitangi doesn't fit that, nor does taxation policy or other things, nor actually does climate justice. What does matter is some of the core principles, particularly of the Christian faith, and a lot of that is around the nature of life and a good ethical life. And what strikes me with this Common Grace outfit, and certainly a lot of the church leaders, is their remarkable silence. Their remarkable silence on a whole variety of other issues. As I say, over recent months and years, we've had to deal with one of the most egregious abortion laws. And mostly from those church leaders, not all, but most of them, silence. We've got an issue with euthanasia developing at the moment. Are we hearing anything from the church leaders? Well, of course not. Absolute silence. When we've had issues around free speech, conversion therapy, drugs, again, where were the open letters from these Christian leaders? They're not there. They're not there because they don't say much at all. And you know what? Let's be completely blunt about this. That says a lot about the depth of their understanding as supposedly church leaders. So it's pretty shocking, actually, and pretty disappointing. So if any of these church leaders are watching, you are actually in dereliction of your duties, and your theology is not aligning correctly, particularly because in this letter, what they're trying to do is shut down discussion and debate. And that's the most problematic part. So I want to be really clear. They're welcome to have an opinion on the Treaty of Waitangi. That's perfectly acceptable. They're welcome to have very different views to their congregants. And I think they'll find out this Sunday that a lot of their congregants do have a different view to them. But that's important. They're welcome to have their view. But what's really concerning in this letter is they demand that no one else be allowed to have a conversation. These church individuals deem this topic so sacred, and they do talk about it being sacred. Believe it or not, the Treaty of Waitangi is a sacred document. It's as sacred and covenantal as Scripture by implication. It's quite remarkable. It's quite remarkable that we have Jesus Christ, the Gospels, Scripture, and the Treaty of Waitangi, according to these guys. It really is quite a remarkable, quite a remarkable turn of events. And to me, as actually a trained theologian, it's a little bit of a surprise. I didn't realise that. But this is the absurdities which they're talking about. They're also misusing their roles. And the media's happily picked up on this, that saying this is the Christian church's perspective. It's not. These guys are not actually speaking on behalf of their churches. This is a highly politicised issue. And I want to keep coming back to that because there are a variety of issues. But they are trying to shut down discussion. And that is so totally, totally inappropriate of Christian leaders. And you can hear in my voice, perhaps the way that I'm speaking, I'm actually quite annoyed at this. I think these leaders, in inverted commas, show a political naivety which is beyond... I say this now as a former politician. They're just basically walking in, handing actually those they oppose, like David Seymour, some free hits, because that's already what is happening. People saying, why are these leaders speaking up on this issue and not others? Why are they getting involved in political issues? Why are they actually masquerading as representing their churches when actually all they're doing is representing their own views? Because, by the way, there's a whole lot of other bishops and priests and vicars and sisters who do not and have not signed and will not sign, because, again, this is a political issue. And I return to where I started. They're trying, unfortunately, in this letter to shut down debate. And the New Zealand Herald this morning, the others are celebrating that. They want this. I think the Herald wrote, sacrificed at the altar. The bill needs to be sacrificed. Now, again, I don't particularly care if you think the treaty bill's a good idea or you think it's ludicrous or unneeded. That's why we have democratic processes. That's why you have select committees. This is why you have a parliament, actually, that talks about topics and allows the public to have a say. And unfortunately, the church has fallen, or these church individuals have fallen into a rather sort of elitist capture, which long and short means they think they know it all. They think they've got enough insight that no one else, you, me, or anyone else in the community needs to have a say. They're right, you're wrong, no more discussion. As I noted on Straight Talk, another Family First show last evening on the panel, that's very much a medieval church perspective. We're right, you're wrong, and if you dare to speak up, we'll shut you down. So look, idiotic, wrong, out of place, not appropriate. So yeah, it's not good. Yeah. So Graham, I think, puts it, call them out for their twisted proposals and low values. Yeah, well, I just think they just don't need to be part of this. As someone else pointed out to me it must have been yesterday, because it's when it came out. Where was the open letter from these church leaders around the recent report into abuse in state and church care? Where was the open letter of apology from these church leaders as church leaders? Haven't seen it. I haven't seen anything. Silence. And this is another good summary from Kirstine and Brendan. It is divisive. It's actually a political. This is not a moral issue. So I'm not at you guys, but this is not a moral or an ethical issue. The churches can and should be speaking up into that space. But this is not. This is not what they're talking into. So again, I'm frustrated, not because of the issue in itself. I'm not actually fired up about the treaty issue in itself. I just can't get over that the church leaders, in inverted commas, decided this was the one to barrel into. And as I say, if you look at this common grace, it really is just Marxist-inspired theology. And I can say that actually with a little bit of authority. It is nothing that particularly is, particularly Christian in any of it. Doesn't mean that it's not Christian, but what they're advocating is the same as what a whole lot of other religions, atheists, politicos will be involved with. But it's sad, it's disappointing. I would encourage people that if you see your pastor or priest or vicar's name on the list, let them know what you think this weekend, be it about the issue, to say, actually, I've got, enough age and experience to have my own views, thank you very much, without you guys having to supposedly represent me. Or just tell them off for being so intolerant of free speech, which they are, because I just keep coming back to it. They hear, and I'm sorry it's so small, the writing, they don't want any debate. That's the egregious part. Now, speaking of that, we've got this little puppy. This is, and I'll only touch on this briefly because I'm conscious time's ripping away. A few months ago, AUT, so that's a university here in Auckland, did a survey, particularly into its law school, and asked people how they were feeling. And long and short, a number of the faculty wrote back saying they actually felt quite bullied. They felt that they weren't able to... Excuse me for a minute. There we go. Keep coughing these days. Not actually sick. I just keep losing my voice, which maybe that's a blessing to my colleagues. Who knows? There we go. So they did this survey, and I don't know the exact percentages, but significant percentages of the staff said, actually, we don't feel we can discuss certain topics. We feel bullied. We don't feel it's a very supportive environment. Now, the university, which talks a big game, and actually was investigated a few years ago, it's called the Kate Davenport Inquiry into Bullying at AUT. The AUT talks a big game, but did nothing. And so at least one person within the law faculty leaked the results to effectively put pressure on the university. And what happened is what you call classic gaslighting. In other words, the bullies blame the bullied. And so this is an email from a professor of law, no less, a Paul Myberg, who very kindly left his contact details at the bottom. But anyway, this is his email to his colleagues, where basically just nasty. As you see at the top, he's calling his colleague cowardly, that they should be utterly ashamed. And as he says, quote, and this is the violence, if you will, that comes from the supposed tolerant left, "We'll hold the door open for you so it doesn't hit your ass on the way out, ahoa." Because, of course, never forget, putting ahoa at the end of an abusive email just makes everything perfectly fine. So why am I highlighting this? This is, if you want, the cancer or the rot that's within our academic institutions. Not just people like Paul, but right through our institutions. And we're going to get to the whole paedophile thing at Vic Uni at the moment, which just further illustrates it. But these are the people teaching your children. These are the people who talk about love and tolerance and kindness and diversity and anti-racism and anti-bullying, but actually they are the proponents, okay? They are the abusers, they are the bullies, they are the intolerant, they are the divisive. And that's the key point. And, I might say my words, but this is from a man who should be trying to look after his colleagues. Instead, he abuses them for saying we feel bullied. That's the absolute definition of a bully and someone who's abusive. And what's the university done about him? Nothing. What have they done about the survey results? Nothing. The dean of the law school is a woman called Kylie Quince. She's often in the news for basically abusing people, akin to death threats for some that she doesn't agree with, particularly around treaty issues. She prefers that anyone who disagrees with her should just go and die. She's also a person who believes that free speech, get this, free speech is a colonial Christian concept that has no place in New Zealand. Well, I'm actually pleased, therefore, if she's right. I don't think she's right, by the way. It does actually make a pretty low view of what it was like before Christians turned up here, that clearly she thinks a country with no free speech is a good one, which is ironic. It's just very disturbing. And again, that's why I'm drawing this to your attention. It's pretty heavy stuff, I'm aware, guys, but you need to be aware, as I'm sure you are, of, again, that deep rot in our institutions. And we've just had two sets of examples. These abusive academics who bully people And then when the bullied step up to say, hey, please stop, they bully them more. And we have in some Christian leaders who don't seem to be able to find their moral courage, but are more than happy to find their political views and to push those forward, supposedly in the name of the church or Jesus, which I think is just appalling, to be honest. Just appalling. So turning to another heavy topic, bit of a theme today. Excuse me. Actually, I'll just share this one from Amanda. She says, I was gaslit out of my job. So people go, gaslit? Gaslighting is when, you are blamed for something you did not cause. Or put it a different way, the person who is causing the harm blames you. It's a classic abuser's technique. But she says she was gaslit out of her job and then blamed for my tolerance when I was only commenting on the news. So there's a good example that Amanda's sharing. This is the problem we've got, which is why you've got the likes of Family First and why you are seeing us obviously continue our education and research. But you will have noticed, and I've got actually a new clip to share with you at the end, how we in Family First are developing a whole range of media now, from Pulse Point, which looks at stories you won't hear in the mainstream media, to things like Straight Talk, Solid Ground. Bob and I do a political playback on a Thursday, our podcast. Also, you can actually get some alternative opinions. And by the way, you don't have to agree with what myself or Bob or any of the team are saying, but we believe that actually you have the right to get different perspectives. Now, speaking of perspectives, so look, we've already pointed out the church leaders in the wrong. And by the way, some church leaders, I've really got to stress that. The media today was making a big deal that somehow, 400 was a big number. It's not. It's significant, but let's not overcook it. We've pointed out then with AUT's lack of free speech. But look at this little puppy. This is part of a study into paedophilia and hebephilia or ephebophilia. Paedophilia is basically prepubescent, 12 and younger normally, and ephebophilia is pubescent and high. I mean, look, it's sick even to think about it. I remember having to study all this when I did ethics at university. It's important at one level, but oh my God, disturbing. Anyway, this is only part. So long and short, the university researchers are wanting to destigmatize paedophilia. They're wanting to destigmatize paedophilia. They want to actually call it, get this, minor attracted persons, or MAP, because obviously using acronyms makes it sound even nicer. And this is the core issue, because as I very quickly mentioned at the start, academic freedom to me is actually quite important. And pretty much no topics off limits. If you want to research the nature, if you will, of paedophilia or, Finnish literature of the 14th century, go for it. The elements of political science or, chemical makeups of various material, go for it. But unfortunately, and what's exceptionally disturbing about this research is that when you look at what it is seeking to research, which is again the destigmatizing of paedophilia and the normalizing of it, then you've got a serious problem. That's not research, that's ideology and propaganda. And as I say, Bob, bless him, as in McCoskrie, has gone on, signed up for the research and actually gone through the question. I can't show them all to you, not because I don't have them, it's just time. But I wanted to show you this one because it just sums up a couple of things. So like I said, first and foremost, they want to change the name. It's no longer paedophilia, that's too stigmatizing. They just want you to be a minor attracted person. And they keep coming back to this particular theme that attraction's not action. In other words, what they're trying to suggest explicitly is it's okay to be attracted to little children. That's perfectly normal. It's just a sexual identity. In fact, they're very keen, and it's a very predictable approach. They're trying to link this to the other sexuality discussion. So they want this to be linked into the same way that trans and general sexuality is being treated. They've basically looked at the playbook of the past and said, look, first thing we do is change the wording, and then we try to just sort of normalize it. We just keep talking about it, and we just say, look, this is not a perversion. This is not morally wrong. It's just a sexuality. Some people are attracted to other men, to other women. Some are attracted to nobody. Some are attracted to 3 or 4 people. In the case of the Victoria University study, they want you to believe that being attracted to little children is just normal. It's just a sexuality like anything else. Surely we're loving and kind. I mean, it's that level of sick. And as I say, they keep coming back to this notion that attraction's not action. So it's all well and good to, again, be attracted. I would argue they probably think that looking at pornographic images and so forth is perfectly fine, as long as you're not acting on it. And there's the first fault. The other is it's the paragraphs that are not actually, it's the third paragraph that's not in red. And this is deeply disturbing to me as well. Because what they're saying here is that because society has norms and rules about who you can and cannot have sexual relations with. So what they're trying to argue here, guys, is that, sexual preferences, particularly the likes, and again, I feel sick to even keep mentioning these names, but it's important that we do. They're basically saying that the likes of paedophilia or ephebophilia are only wrong. They're only wrong according to these university academics because the law says they're wrong. That is in itself wrong, and it's crazy. We have a morality in human society that can run parallel and sometimes different to the law. Okay, pedophilia, being attracted to children, is morally wrong, whether the law says it is or not. Okay, it is morally wrong. It is ethically wrong. We don't need a law to tell us that it is. And to these muppets at the university who are arguing that really it's only because society sets rules that something is or is not right, they might want to think for a moment around homosexual law reform or slavery. And why do I mention those two? Is because according to their argument, it was perfectly fine to persecute homosexuals while it was illegal, to go and beat them up or whatever, because it was perfectly legal. It was okay to own slaves when the law said it's okay to own slaves. I mean, of course, that's absurdities. Okay, we all know we can look back to certain laws, and again, take the slavery one, for example. There was a time where slavery was legal. And according to these academics, who says, well, every society has norms and rules. Granted, they're talking about sexual behavior, but what they're arguing here is that it is the law which says what is right and what is wrong. And so they don't seem to have done the thought experiment that, well, there was a time where the law said slavery was okay. Well, we know that regardless of what the law said, it wasn't okay. That's because we know morally it's not right. Okay? We know it's morally not right. As I say, in the more modern times, are they saying that before, is it 1986 when New Zealand changed its homosexual law reform, that before then it was perfectly fine what was happening? I doubt they would. But this is the inconsistency. This is the inconsistency as they're thinking. But again, I just think it's sick. And this is the other strange couple of very quick points, guys, because once again, I'm conscious of time and I talk too long. That's me. So you've got this Vic Uni crowd. This is only one screenshot from, again, quite a series of disturbing questions trying to normalise paedophilia. So at the same time this research is happening, you get rightly things like this in the newspaper. Now, I better be clear, I'm not saying the newspapers are or are not supporting this, but this is just the inherent contradictions that we have. So the paper's rightly hoeing into this chap because of his, basically child pornography, just absolutely tragic. So you've got rightly media drawing attention to this, yet simultaneously the university saying, well, let's just normalise it. And I'd also add this one in too. I don't know if you can read it, but it's the abuse and care. It's the front page of Whanakatia. It's the excuse me. Sorry, losing my voice. So this is a report a few weeks ago about abuse and care. And if you've read parts or all the report, a lot of it was men in particular in state or church institutions who were abusing young people, probably more on the ephebophilia side than paedophilic, but still just awful, beyond awful. And yet this crowd at Vic Uni are just wanting to say it's just an attraction. It's perfectly fine. So in other words, what you've got is two competing issues here. Either these things are wrong, and we know they're intuitively wrong, or we've got this crowd pushing supposed research that really being attracted to little kids is perfectly fine. It's just an attraction. I mean, yeah, it's just an attraction. It's just another, what would you say? Well, they're trying to argue it's just another sexuality. Very disturbing. But as I kept coming back to today, there's a real rot in society. And as I also noted, because I mentioned that this report, again, where the church leaders' common letter apologising for their church's roles in these behaviours. Nothing to be seen. Very, very sad and very disturbing. Hey, look, a couple of last messages from me. You still have a week or so to write into this public consultation around the end-of-life choice bill. Please do. In fact, I've just written a Substack, literally published it this morning. You can see, actually, I finally worked out the website for you. You can go to onpointnz.substack.com. That's me. And you can look up, I've called it alarm bells. I point out at least 4 issues in play with the latest reporting that's come out. Get this, that the ministry has miscounted. It has 2 sets of numbers for how many people have been killed or euthanized over the last year. I mean, get that. They can't even add up the numbers. Then there's concerns around their end-of-life committee. Long and short, there's 4 of them. And I just present those there. Being the fair man that I am, know that Bob also does a Substack. We politely compete. He's more prolific than I am, and he's touching on some great issues. So you can look up Mick Blog. So just go to substack.com and either look up Bob's name or Mick Blog, or in my case, you can just go and look up On Point, or you can look up my name. So there's that. So those are our written forms. I'm just going to actually play you a little video now. This is the premiere on Solid Ground. It's long and short, it's just letting you know of some of the other things that we're doing here at Family First, and I'll be back on once it's done.
If you're looking for news that you can trust, commentary on key family and social issues, and conservative conversations, go no further. Family First has them all. Monday nights, live at 8 p.m, Straight Talk with our panel. Tuesday mornings, live at 8 a.m, Solid Ground with Simon O'Connor. Wednesdays, watch for the latest episode of Pulse Point to drop. We watch the news so that you don't have to. Thursdays, live at 5 p.m, political playback with Bob McCoskrie and Simon O'Connor discussing the week in Parliament and politics in general. Plus, there's regular episodes of social commentary with Mick Blog and interviews on family matters throughout the week. You can watch these live and also on demand on our website, Facebook page, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel. Finally, something worth watching that you can trust. Go to familyfirst.watch for more details.
So no excuses. There's so much to watch, and I'm surrounded by amazing colleagues doing great content. So look, stay tuned. So every week on Thursday we've got political playback. That's where Bob and I I suspect we'll actually touch on a number of the issues that we have this morning, but we'll go deeper and bounce our thoughts. And then come join me on Friday. This is not Family First, strictly speaking, but as many of you will know, I do a 2-hour radio show online every Friday morning. In fact, I'm going to have Bob on. This Friday. We're going to talk a few issues. So look, flick me a message. I can do my interviewer. I can be the bad cop. Put the pressure down on him. So let me know your questions. But I'll be having a good long chat to Bob. In fact, I'm also trying to line up some chats with the Free Speech Union and others as well. So look, guys, we've touched on 3 pretty big and heavy topics this morning. As you know, part of the whole point of Solid Ground is good, solid discussions on a good, solid basis of faith, values and ethics, but it's also based on a good, solid ground of coffee, and I suspect we'll need a second and strong cup this morning. So look, bless you all. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful rest of the week. See some of you online Thursday night for political playback. Otherwise, we'll see you next Tuesday morning.